Hello, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you about the visioning of the church. I appreciate you taking the time to do so. I've had 9 sessions with people in the congregation, and as we had them, we realized that even though a lot of people were able to come, several people were not, and so I did want to give this opportunity so that everybody'd be able to hear some of the visions and the plans that we have for the future of the congregation. One of the things that's become very important for us on the staff is to make sure that we communicate well. And one of the things about communication is that you can provide all of the information you possibly can, but if you don't have people listening, the communication's not complete. So we promise what we'll do is we will make sure that we give all the information in a number of different ways and a number of different modes so that you can read it, hear it, see it, all those different things. But we do rely on you to make sure that you do the reading and you do the listening so that you know where we're going and what the plans are. And one of the things that we've noticed recently is just that we've had a lot of things happening, like in the Grapevine Village and with our Project Repair, that people don't know as much about as we would like for them to. We've been able to accomplish 12 of the complete renovations of the homes in the Grapevine Village. Also, we have had a new scout troop that's been brought into the church because of some of the things that have been happening in the scouting program. Churches have become uncomfortable hosting them, and one of the good things about our church is that we're not uncomfortable. We do feel like the things that they bring to our youth program are important, and they provide a group for many people who wouldn't have one otherwise. And so there are things happening at the church that we don't always do a good job of communicating to you. Every week on Sunday morning, I'm going to be giving a good news moment, and so we hope that that helps some. We hope that you will be able to see those things that are happening and that you'll enjoy them and feel good about them as we on the staff do and in the leadership of the church do. So stay tuned for some of those things. I did want you to know about the difficulty of our summer. We had a tough summer, and it's felt like it's gone on forever. The summer was difficult primarily because of having to close our preschool, our Creative Learning Center. And I did want you to know why we did that. It was difficult in the sense that when we got a new director of the preschool, the direction of the preschool took a different track. And some of those teachers and some of the administrators and some of the board, the CLC board, were not all in agreement on the way that it should go. And so that created frustrations and difficulties. And one of the things that I noticed was that we had people whose relationships were getting strained. And we had folks not coming to church because of it. We had people not being able to go to Sunday school classes because of those strained relationships. And it just seemed like it was really affecting the church in ways that were not healthy. But I think we could have fought our way through that. What happened, though, was on the beginning of the second week of June, I had the director and the assistant director come into my office, and they gave me their resignations. And it had taken us about 3 months to hire the director, and we didn't have 3 months to hire a new one, because during the summer, that's when a lot of the work of the director comes into play. The director's taking families around, looking at what's going on with our preschool, and did they want to register for our preschool, what classes that we would have, and so forth. Well, we weren't going to have a director for the summer. In fact, we weren't sure we would even have a director in place by September the 1st, particularly in the shape that the preschool was in. And so the evening of the morning that I received those resignations, I called an executive committee meeting, and that group voted after a 2.5-hour meeting to close the preschool, that was our best option. And the reason they decided that was they felt like it was the kindest thing to do for the parents and for the teachers, because if we got to August and we found out we couldn't get a director or we couldn't really have the preschool that we wanted, or even have the people registered, or the teachers available to teach, we were going to be in trouble, and then we would have to say to them at the last minute, I'm sorry, we're not going to have preschool. They wouldn't have the opportunity to get another job or to be able to find a new preschool. And so we felt like it was the best thing for us to close the preschool and to start planning for a reopening in the future. That met with a lot of difficulty, of course, from teachers and from parents and people that didn't understand, people that didn't get all the information that we would have wanted them to have. But the recommendation from the executive committee went on to the preschool board, and then also to the administrative board, and all three of those groups unanimously approved that idea that we would close the preschool. We had one abstention at the administrative board meeting, but everybody else thought that that was the best tactic for us and the best way to move forward. It was a very difficult decision, and as I said, was difficult for the parents and for the teachers. The task now is to make sure that we build the best preschool that we possibly can for the future, and so I'll tell you a little bit about that here in a few moments. But I did want you to know that over the summer, that caused a lot of difficulty for the staff. We had a number of people coming in and talking to us, people that were trying to get the correct information, people that were angry at us, people that thought we made the wrong decision. And then you couple that with changing the times of our worship services just before that, and had we known that this was going to happen with the preschool, we would have never changed the times for our worship services. But between those two things, worship attendance went down. We did find ourselves as a staff feeling like we were swimming upstream. About a month ago, I talked to the staff about what the summer had been like and how difficult it was. And so we took, during our staff meeting, time to think about all of the bad things that had happened to the church over the last few years. And so I said, beginning with the death of Ken Deem, just tell me all of those things that have happened to the church. And we went through everything that you can imagine, from people on staff getting cancer and having to take breaks because of that, others that had really struggled in their ministry and with their relationship with Ken that they had been grieving, and then on top of that, things like the highways being closed because of the construction, and just on and on. And we filled up half of the board with all of these different kinds of difficulties. And I asked the staff, what does that make you feel like? And they said, we can't imagine that all of this stuff has been going on. And I said, did you cause it? Did I cause it? And they said, no, these are just things that happened to us. And so I said, well, before you really get depressed or cut your wrists or whatever, let's look at what good things happened to us. And the good things that happened over that same time period. And then we filled up the other half of the whiteboard there in our staff meeting with all of the good things that had come out of the ministry of this church. And I said, now what do you feel like? And they said, how were we able to accomplish so many things with so many other things going wrong and being difficult? And I said, it's because of the Spirit of God. And the reason that we want to look at this is because if we concentrate on the left side of the board, all of those things that have gone wrong and have been difficult, it's going to suck us dry. We're just not going to have any energy. We're not going to be able to see what the Spirit is doing in our lives. But if we concentrate on the right side of the board, the good things that are happening, we're going to be energized, we'll be excited, and we'll see the hand of God working among us. And that's what's important. And it's important for the whole church to recognize that as well. I have been glad to see over these last several Sundays that attendance is coming back. It's getting larger virtually every Sunday, and that other programs are growing along the way with it. So I do feel a little relief there. I hope you do as well. But I did want you to know that it's been a difficult summer. And I do think that the staff has found that that they really never truly grieved Ken Deem's death. They were working hard at helping you in grieving his death, but they never had the opportunity to do that themselves. And so we've had 2 staff members who have had to go on extended leave. We've had a number of staff say they just didn't have energy. They just didn't feel like they were doing the job at the kind of pace that they needed to be doing it. And again, we had 2 staff members who found out they had cancer, and we're going to have to go through the treatments for that. So I do think that we found that the summer was difficult, and even into the beginning of the fall. But now that we are looking forward to this week of Thanksgiving and then on from there into the birth of Christ, we do feel a new birth, and we're excited about it. One of the things I want you to know is that we have tried as a staff not to react to things that have been difficult, in the sense that you have that knee-jerk reaction and react in ways that aren't helpful, but that we've responded to things in a healthy and helpful way. I do think that one of the ways that you can see that is the way that we've worked with the worship services. We found out after watching the worship services over the last several months that there were people who missed the traditional service that we had at 10:10 or the contemporary service that we had at 9 o'clock. And so we have started to make that 9:45 service much more traditional in style. We will continue to have the 11 o'clock service as a blended type of service. And then at 9 o'clock, we're starting a coffee and praise time where people will come and be able to worship together in a more contemporary and relaxed style. And we'll just see kind of how that evolves and where that takes us as a congregation. But we'll continue to listen, and I do think that our staff has a very good finger on the pulse of our church and how we're able to respond to the things that come into the life of the congregation. Other ways that we've been responding, I would like to say that it's kind of like trying to create new things, but in familiar packages that help the congregation grow. I don't believe that the Holy Spirit has finished working with this church, and so things like new mission projects are important for us to examine and to see if those are things we want to do. For instance, looking at a new village. We wanted to do that in a way that was comfortable for the congregation, and we look at how Africa became one of our villages. Ken Deem took a group of pastors to Kenya after meeting the bishop there, Bishop William, at a conference here in the United States. And those pastors came back and started programs in their own churches. And then Ken took a group of people from our congregation to Kenya, and they fell in love with Kenya and with the people of Kenya. Not long ago, I had one of our members come and talk to me about Latvia and about how they had fallen in love with that country and with the ministry there and with the pastors. And he invited me to go with him to a meeting of the Friends of Latvia that were meeting in Tennessee. So we went to Knoxville, spent a few days meeting the pastors, meeting the district superintendent, meeting the bishop of that Episcopal area. And just like him, I fell in love with them too and was intrigued with this different type of ministry. You see, Latvia has been in a situation where they were occupied by the Soviets and then by the Nazis and then by the Soviets again for 51 years. And the churches certainly didn't flourish during that time. In fact, they were either state churches or they were closed. The Methodist churches were all closed because they didn't like the free-thinking Methodists. And that ought to make you feel good about the Methodist church. But in 1991, the country got its independence again. And so the church is beginning to reemerge. And what's amazing is that the church has pastors that are 25 years old and pastors that are 75 years old and nobody in between, because the church just didn't exist. And in fact, that's really the way the congregations look. And so the people who tell me, I'm not interested in going to Kenya, it's too far away, I don't really want to work with people in Africa, or I don't feel comfortable working with people that are in the Grapevine village because they're undocumented folks, and I don't feel comfortable doing that. Maybe they'd be comfortable going to Latvia in a more evangelistic type of ministry and mission that is there. On a Sunday morning in Latvia, there are, in the 13 congregations they have, the 11 church buildings that they worship in. And when I say a church building, it may just very well be like one of our Sunday school rooms, an apartment that was a part of a Soviet bloc apartment house. But about 150 Methodists are worshiping on a Sunday morning all over the country. And they're growing, but they're growing very slowly. And so we can be a part of that growth. And I do think that there will be people who aren't comfortable going to our other villages that would be comfortable going to Latvia and find that ministry to be rewarding. It doesn't cost us any more money, by the way, because those are designated funds, not operational budget funds. And so that's important to remember as well. We don't send people on our mission trips from our budget. We send them because they're willing to pay their own way. And so I did want you to know that as well. But you can see how then what we've done is try to put a new ministry in an old way of doing things. So we took our trip to Latvia. The people have come back. 11 of us went, and they were excited. They certainly fell in love with the ministry there and the people there. And now they want to start some new mission work in Latvia. They have recommended that Latvia become our fourth village. It will be taken to the administrative board in December, and at our meeting then, and we'll decide at that point whether this is going to be our new village or not. Also, another thing that we did was that I've decided that one of our growing edges is discipleship. We do a great job in mission, but discipleship is that way in which we grow in ourselves so that we can have something to give when we go into the mission field. And when we come back from the mission field and we're drained, we've given the Spirit of God that's within us and the love that we feel in our hearts to those folks, then we have a way to replenish the Spirit within us. And so discipleship here is important, and I'm talking about Sunday school classes, I'm talking about small groups, I'm talking about things like spiritual formation, those types of things that can help us grow and grow in our relationship with God. I do think that what's happening now is that we again did something very similar to what you did before. When mission work exploded here, it was because Ken did an all-church study of the book A Hole in Our Gospel, and then had meetings after that were called What's Next, and we did the same thing with the book, The Great Omission. And so we read the book as a congregation, we had classes going on with it, and then we moved from there into the What's Next sessions. And in those What's Next sessions is where we started doing a whole lot of different kinds of things. One of the things that we did, or have been doing, is to work on the youth group. I had a group of parents come and talk to me that our youth group was not as good as we'd want it to be. Not as large, not as dynamic. And so I said, would you work with me on that, and work with Jenny Davidson, our Director of Youth Ministries? And they said, yeah, well, they would. And so we started meeting together, and we started just simply with the statement, what does it look like to have the best youth ministry that we possibly could have in this church? And we went from there. And I'm pleased to say that because of the efforts that we put together on that the youth group has grown. But now it's begun to level off, it's begun to plateau, and we want to look now at how we're going to grow even further. We basically tripled the attendance in the youth group with #Hooked. Now the question is, how do we move from that number to 100 and 125 and 150 and continue to grow the youth ministry. Youth ministry is very important to me because that's where I got my call to ministry, and I do think it's a vital time in young people's lives where they don't feel all that comfortable with themselves. But some great things are happening in the youth group and even in our Bible studies. One of the assistant youth ministers that we have, Michael Franklin, has been building the middle high Bible study. They had 19 the other night, then they had 22, and then they had 25, and then they had 32, and it just keeps seeming to grow and grow. And the same with the high school Bible study. Jenny had 20 in that group the other night. So we're looking not only at Sunday night, but also at our Bible study times and the way that we can continue to grow the youth group. Children's ministry is the same way. We've not been happy with the growth of our children's ministry, and so we want to see that grow even more. And so a group of parents have joined with me again in building that area of ministry. We've had 5 meetings now at this point, and there is a great dream that is there, and it's exciting to see. And we'll be rolling out some new ministries in January and a new plan for the future. So be watching for that as well. As I said, spiritual formation is important too. And we have a new group called our Spiritual Formation Group that we hope to be able to make a center for spiritual formation. Their task will be to help people grow closer in their relationship with God, not in a cognitive way, but in an experiential way. We do pretty well with our Sunday school classes and with our study groups, but we also want to have those times where you can grow closer to God by just being with God. As we recognize there, you can feel very knowledgeable about God, but feel very far from God at the same time. And so we want to provide for that through our spiritual formation group. Another thing that we have been working on is the 11 o'clock hour. Our 11 o'clock Sunday school time is slowly moving forward. We hope to have times where people who would not normally be in a Sunday school class would be willing to spend 3 or 4 or 5, 6 weeks in a study that they're interested in. Something that might even fit with our growing children's ministry or youth ministry. Things like how to be a better parent of a toddler, or things like how do I share my faith with my middle schooler. Those kinds of things that we hope to be able to do. And the 11 o'clock hour is a good time to do that. We've also started 3 new task forces, and those have taken a great priority in my ministry here, but also a priority in the church's work. And the first of those is our Heritage Task Force. My only understanding of why we should have a second campus is that we can do ministry out of that place that we can't do effectively from our downtown location. And so we are in the middle of 3 schools there: Heritage High School, Heritage Elementary School, and Heritage Middle School. And so we don't really have a presence in those schools. We're going to be looking at the campus as a way that we can provide ministry to those schools, to the students, to the teachers, to the administrators, and we already have a lot of plans that are building. We've partnered with Connect, which is that group within the community that connects the community to the schools. They are going to help us with some mentoring and with some tutoring. Also, Michael Franklin is working with an idea that through his certification with ADD kids, that we might be able to provide some interesting options for ADD kids and for their growth. And so that's exciting to us as well. I think that if you go over to the Heritage Campus, you'll find that the parking lot is most full on a weekday afternoon when it's time for the kids to get out of school, because the parents are there waiting for their kids. Well, we need to open the building up. We need to make sure that they're not sitting in their cars when it's cold outside. We need to have coffee and be hospitable to them. We also need to provide maybe a time where they get a 15-minute devotional before their kids come out of school. Or maybe what we do is that we provide options for recreation for the children after they come out of school. So there are a lot of different things that we can do there. We are working on the worship there as well. Rick Mang is now the connecting pastor there, and he's not going to be preaching all the time, but he's responsible for the service, and will be making sure that the service continues to build and to grow, which I'm thankful that that's the case. Also, we have a task force with our rebirthing of the preschool, and we have a vision for that now. We've done some demographic work and looked at the preschools that we have around the area. And to tell you the truth, there are a lot of preschools. We started our preschool 47 years ago. It started as a Head Start program. And so when it started, there weren't many preschools around. Now they're on every corner, and every one of them have openings in their preschool. I don't think we need to open another preschool like everybody else has a preschool. What I think we need to be doing is looking at how do we serve the community? How do we minister to the community in ways that would be helpful? And so the vision that we have is how can we have a diverse preschool? One that meets the needs of not only the wealthy in our community or the white folks in our community, but also those that are of different skin colors, those of different cultures, those of different languages, those of different economics. All of those things that if we could create a preschool where there's diversity in that preschool, and that would help our school system because they have kids coming in that have been in preschool that are reading before they get to school. And they also have some folks that don't even speak English, and basically the language in their home is a second language. And so what we want to do is to begin to provide a place where we can grow in diversity, and we can grow in our way of helping people know what the world really is like, and not just our little microcosm of our culture, but something that really reflects the culture that we have here in the greater Grapevine area. I'm really excited about that. We are hiring a consultant, and we're in the process of working with that consultant now. I think that we will be able to have a preschool start in September of 2015, and I think you'll be excited about that program. Also, we have the building task force. We're still attempting to purchase the building across the street from us, across Church Street. That is the Senior Activities Center. At least we want to have a chance at buying that building. That would be 11,000 square feet that we don't have in our campus now, and would provide a space for maybe offices, or maybe the new preschool, or maybe the youth program. We could just look at a lot of different things. But our building task force is working on the needs assessment of what we have, what it would take to buy that building. And what we want to do with the two historic homes that we have on campus, the ones that are on College Street, the Forbes House and the Thrift Shop. Both of those have a lot of physical need to them. We need to do some work on those, but as you well know, when you're in the historic district and the historic homes, that those are going to cost us a lot of money to fix up. We have to fix them up historically correct. And so I do think that those are going to be difficult for us over the years. I think they're going to be more and more expensive for us. So we are looking at a way that we might work with the city to put those back into the hands of residents. That's what the city's trying to do with a lot of their historic properties. Take them out of corporate hands, lawyers' hands, or the hands of a doctor here and there, or even a church. And that we might be able to parlay that into a way that we can get the Senior Activity Center for less money than what it would normally cost us. But we've got a lot of work there. We have a lot of older buildings here in our church that need a lot of work, and so we're going to be working on that as well. One of the other things that I want to do is that we're going to look at how we can do our ministry and plan our ministry differently. The staff has been working a lot on the plans for ministry and the vision for ministry, but we want lay people involved in this. And so the Council on Ministry and the Administrative Board have long been more of a reporting kind of session. I want them to be in on the planning. A good example of how we've not planned for the future very well is that we've got things like the butterfly flutterby that was just a part of our community the other day, and we had literally thousands of people walking through our parking lot. If a small group of people on the staff had not been willing to get out there and welcome folks and really put some effort in that at the last minute, we wouldn't have had any kind of connection with those people at all. And the same is true. I've got a group of people that will be on my balcony looking at the Christmas parade here in a few weeks, and yet we don't have any of our groups that are in the Christmas parade. We don't have any floats that will be a part of that. We don't have really anything that goes on at Grape Fest or at Main Street Days or at either of the high school's homecomings, and we need to be looking at those ways of entering into the community. We really are the community church, and we find that people see us that way in a number of ways, but we need to take responsibility for that. And the Council on Ministries and the Administrative Board can plan for those kinds of activities better than the staff can do. And so I've already met with Alan Bearclaw and John Erickson, who are the chair and the vice chair of Council on Ministries, and they have a plan for how we're going to start working on those different things. And I am excited about that as well. I do want you to know that we've had some good signs of a turnaround that's been coming, like the picnic that we had a few months ago. The picnic, we had 200 or 300 people. We kept trying to count, but you kept moving around and we couldn't do it. But we had people of all ages there. It was a great fellowship, and I think that was honestly the beginning of that kind of move in the direction that our church would want to go. We had the fall into mission. We had more people involved in that than we have had ever. We had 140 people that were up here ready to go to different projects all over town, over 20 projects that we had. But we can have more than that, and we can continue to build that. The gala was a great success. Our biggest gala so far was last year, and that was $53,000. That was the net. That was what we cleared for mission work last year. This year we cleared $72,000. I mean, that's $19,000 more than what we had the year before. And the first year that this church had a gala was 11 years ago. The first amount of money that was cleared was $23,000. So we almost increased that much money this year. So really, what a great thing that has been. The pumpkin patch, man, I never would have thought we could have sold over $25,000 worth of pumpkins and made $9,300 for the youth mission. That was a great success as well. And finally, the kitchen is about to be finished. We're just waiting for our last green card from the city so that we can get cooking in there. And I am excited about that. I do want you to know that we've been working on our finances as well, and the finances are getting better and better. Since 2010, we have had to dip into our reserve funds to make the end of the year, and then sometimes we had to dip into those funds to the tune of about $150,000. And the finance team said we can't do that anymore. We're not going to have reserve funds when we need them if we continue to do that. So we're going to have a balanced budget this year. And it looks as though our budget as we end the year truly will be balanced, and we will not have to dip into reserve funds. Of course, that depends on how we end the year and the giving and the generosity of our congregation. But one of the things that people don't realize is that church finances are different than virtually anything and everything else. That we have about 80 to 90% of our budget that is fixed, and the rest of it is just the things that we can work on in ministry and in programming, and it's and also the things that you forget is that where so much of our budget is fixed, a lot of our giving, well, all of our giving is variable. It's depending on the generosity of the congregation. And people don't always realize what that means. What it means is that a couple of down Sundays makes a huge difference. We were just saying that if we if we didn't have Christmas Eve service because we had an ice Sunday or an ice event on Christmas Eve night, that would probably make a difference of about $40,000 to $45,000 in our income, the giving of the church. I once had a guy tell me on a Christmas Eve night, he said, "Man, you sure are full tonight." And it's going to be one of several services that we had, and I said, "Yes, we are going to be full, and we'll be full all night long." And he said, "I bet you wish you had charged admission." And I said, "Well, we are going to have an offering," and just to remind him that he could be a part of that. But he said, "Yeah, but just think if you had just charged $1 a head." And his idea of what a good night would have been as far as people giving to ministries of the Lord was about $3,000 to $4,000. And that night we really did have an offering of about $45,000. It's just not always in the way that people think. We've also been able to lower the number or the amount of our indebtedness. Back several years ago, our indebtedness was $5.4 million. We've cut that in half to $2.7 million. Back several years ago, we weren't paying full principal. We weren't even paying a full payment of the indebtedness that we had, or the interest money that we had. And so now we're able to pay more than what the full mortgage payment is, both principal and interest. That payment is about $24,000 a month. And so we are making those and doing much better on that. We hope to have that all paid off long before it's actually due, and that would be 2025. But we think we can even beat that by several years. So things are going better. The finance team is really working hard at that. We are behind on our pledges coming in, and so if you've not made your pledge, we hope you will do so. We hope you will consider giving an extra amount as the end of the year comes to a close, and so that we can end this year not in the red but in the black, not using our reserves, but having a little left over to begin the year so we can start taking care of some of those needs that we have. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, please make sure you give me a call. I'd love to talk to you about any of the things that I've discussed today. And I do thank you for spending some time with me.